Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you all in our side event today. My name is Rahaf Abu Shaheen. I'm the Executive Director at the Caucus of Women Politicians in the MENA region. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to welcome you in our side event today, and thank you for being with us. Our event is dedicated to explore the different experiences of fact-finding missions in the MENA region with a special focus on women, peace, and security, while addressing the challenges faced in documenting gender-based violence. In a region that is witnessing escalation of conflicts and wars, women are among the most affected groups, where in some countries gender-based violence and sexual violence are being used as war weapons. Our aim today is to highlight how feminist movements have overcome the challenges in documenting gender-based violence and to build on the different lessons learned. Our session will include an overview of the experiences in the MENA region, and also will explore Nazra and the Committee for Justice submission to the fact-finding mission, while addressing as well the situation of women and human rights defenders in Sudan, and special focus on the Sudan's experience and what's next. Without any further delay, please allow me to welcome the speakers. We have with us Her Excellency Mrs. Lina Mahjoub, who's a former Minister of Labor and Social Development in Sudan Transitional Government from 2019 to 2021. And she is a board member of the Caucus of Women in Politics. Also, we have our colleague Muzun Hassan, who's an Egyptian feminist and the founder of Nazra for Feminist Studies, as well as the Caucus of Women Politicians in the MENA region, and different other initiatives in the same region. Unfortunately, our colleague Abdel Khalik Shaib couldn't make it to Geneva. However, the substance that he was going to present is to be tackled by our present speakers. And I'd like also to welcome our colleague, Mr. Osama Mohamed Oglu, who's the UN and Regional Communication Officer at the Committee for Justice. So without any further delay, Muzin, the floor is yours. If you can give us an overview about the experiences in the region, the situation, the challenges, and the submission that Nazra has made to the fact-finding mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahaf, and thank you for all who are with us today. Yeah, it's not working. I think you should close it. Yeah, is it working now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us today and talking about one of the most problematic, heartbreaking regions in the world, the MENA region, which has more than 7 wars ongoing, many conflicts, less rights for people, and devastating experiences we all have been facing daily. So it's hard to begin saying that our hearts are with our fellow people in Lebanon, Palestine, Iraq, Yemen, Sudan, Libya, Tunisia. It is a hard region, but one of the things I think we are here to say that there is an alternative narrative all the time to what's happening. It's not only about people who have been struggling on power. It is also about people who are struggling to alternative power to give people their rights. And this is one of the things we have been working as Nazra and the other organizations. We are here to do it for our region and for us and for our people, and especially for women. When we were thinking after the war in Sudan in 2019, how we can be in real solidarity, support, and being with people who have been always with us, especially for women and feminist movements in this place, who have been always educating us, inspiring us to be strong, political, right-based, and cheerful and dancing women, which is rarely in this region. We have been thinking that it's really important to be with them in constructive ways. And the constructive is to share with them the experiences we have been in our region, and also supporting each other to bring Sudan as a missing conflict on the international agenda to the surface. We created with Committee for Justice, the Caucus of Women in Politics, other young women and men from Sudan, groups and individuals, this coalition toward gender accountability for Sudan. And gender accountability for us is not only about women, it's about understanding how to work on holistic ways, intersectional, and understanding the differences for people, and empowering ourselves with ourselves all the time. So we have been working in evacuation, we have been working on also addressing the international system in different ways. As all of you, I think, know that Sudan, as example, have multiple international mechanisms and UN mechanisms, and also regional mechanisms have been working on. We have been thinking while we are engaging in this, our experiences when we have been working together with amazing young women from Libya in 2011, after that in beginning documentation of sexual violence in a country like Libya, which has never had a structured civil society, but had lots of hopes and lots of amazing young women and men who wanted to build in their country, and how those groups have been working hard to have to engage in documentation. Then after that, when they have a fact-finding mission for Libya, how to include gender-based violence and sexual violence into the process, and how this have been leading them to work hard to include all of this work to the mandate of the International Criminal Court, which we are waiting for Karim Khan to announce the new names he mentioned about for perpetrators he wants to investigate. And thinking about, like, Sudan is I'm Egyptian, so I know how countries have had structured civil societies in a way. So in Sudan, we have a long history, like I said, for feminist movements, and also for organizations in such a way and other things. And this also, when we have been working with Sudanese women and men, we have been thinking about Yemen, which Yemen mainly have been a structured civil society, an enlightened population who have been facing a war and a missing war and a famine. Like, it is also a deja vu what's happening in our region, that it's just continues of the same things. But how the Yemeni feminists have been engaged in documentation and gender accountability, but how also have been working on this to reach collective healing, to reach peace. Not only to document for naming and shaming, they are documenting to reach something, to reach reconstruction of their country, and having themselves on the table. We are always saying, and maybe people who knows me know that I'm always advocating for not to have corridor advocacy for women, to have women on the table. And women is not only women who are pro us or coming from our perspective. It's about the existence of certain people who have never thought about them to sit and negotiate security, negotiate peace, negotiate anything. And this is one of the things I think we have to be critical, but also critical in a positive way, to think about how many UN envoys and special rapporteurs and special envoys have been creating this women councils or advisory groups, which made women's issues parallel, not second track, and hindered women many times from sitting, talking for things more than the stereotype about what's gender issues. And because of that, we are talking about gender accountability, because it's not about only the stereotyped about what's gender issues. Gender issues is country issues, social issues, and also by representation, thinking also about the quality of the representation, the feminist representation. So we have been talking all the time with our fellow amazing women and feminists from Sudan about the experience of Yemen and the Yemeni feminists on creating feminist peace agenda, and they built it on the work of their documentation and how the failing experiences for them not to extend the fact-finding mission on Yemen is not helping them to continue having their documentation on the gender and sexual-based violence. And because of that, we have been supporting and working on the fact-finding mission and having these narratives on it. With all what's happening, I know I don't have many time, I'm really sorry, okay. but also thinking about this process, also we have been thinking about what has been happening to the Syrian women who have come after many years of zero public sphere, and even Syrian people don't know each other, and how bringing women on a peace processes was so hard, but generation after generation, we have been finding now that Syrian women and Syrian feminists have been one of the strongest feminist movements ever coming from this region after generations. So when we are talking about who are inside Sudan now, these new generations from places which has never been in conflict before, it's always, there is a hope. But this hope needs mainly a political will. And the political will couldn't come by any way, by thinking in a good way. It's about acting. And we always have been urging the international system and the regional system to have structure inclusion for civil society, for human rights defenders and women human rights defenders, and women's issues, but also thinking about the working moms and like our minister now, that children are not allowed to come to this place. So if you are a woman and want to be engaged in your country, you have to get a parallel life for your children, and this is not happening for men. And if you left your children, this means that you are not a well and good mom, and if you come with them, they are not allowed. And for others who have been stigmatized not to be mothers or other things, that are those crazy feminists who are always there because they have nothing to do. So having systematic inclusion for women and women's issues, especially what we documented for the fact-finding mission, for many of, and structure and systematic sexual-based violence, rape, gang rape, sexual slavery, sexual exploitation, all of these things have been used by all the reports, not only us, but everybody locally, regionally, internationally, have been more than 90% coming from the RSF. It's mainly to stop the power of the Sudanese women, and also to stigmatize men who have been so-called allowed them this to happen. And if we know how the strong feminist movements and the narratives coming from this movement have been helping their country, their region, the global south, and the black communities everywhere. So and with the high rate of sexual violence, gang rape, which has been, like Rahaf said, not only a weapon of war, but also have been targeted to certain ethnics, certain colors and certain places, and especially, and we have been seeing and documenting with women who have been saying that those who are raping us once and 3, 4 times, just and telling them that because you know who we are, to tell your men who we are. And all of these things couldn't go without accountability, couldn't go without having the voices from those women entering the local, regional, international spaces, and couldn't come without having women on the tables for negotiations for their rights, for their existence, and for their state and nation existence. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Muzun. I'll move now to Osama. Regarding your monitoring of the situation of women and human rights defenders in Sudan at the Committee for Justice, please.
Okay, thank you, Raf. My name is Osama. I work at CFG as a UN and Regional Communication Officer and a researcher. Just a quick overview about CFG. We are an organization committed to defending and promoting human rights. It's on. You hear me better now? Okay, I'll try to get closer. And we mainly focus on across the Middle East and North Africa, including Sudan, where the ongoing conflict has severe suffering. I would like now to turn our attention to focus more on the situation of human rights defenders in Sudan and our efforts in this coalition to shed light on the critical challenges they face. Especially since April 2023. I will focus now on these challenges, of course, faced by human rights defenders and women human rights defenders, and I will focus on the essential roles they play and in the broader human rights movement in Sudan. So, at CFG, we have documented many cases of human rights defenders being harassed, intimidated, arrested, and sometimes even killed in Sudan. Many of them have been forced to work secretly with caution or flee the country, leaving behind communities that desperately relied on their advocacy work. At CFG, we have, since the beginning of the conflict, Sudanese human rights defenders faced grave threats. These threats are not isolated incidents because, based on our analysis, they are a systematic campaign of repression because their documentation and monitoring work in exposing perpetrators. So human rights defenders and women human rights defenders and lawyers are being subjected to harassment, enforced disappearance, arbitrary arrest, torture, extrajudicial killings, and unfair trials by both warring parties. So the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces. The documented cases we submitted in our report to the fact-finding mission. Unfortunately, I can't share some of the cases, but I can give you some examples of the cases we monitored in the Committee for Justice. For example, lawyers like Salah Al-Tayyib, who was arrested on 17 April 2024 by military intelligence. He was detained and tortured for 19 days and ultimately died of his injuries because of torture on 5 May 2024. Second is Siham Hassan Hasaballah, which is a woman human rights defender and a former member of the parliament. Ms. Siham was arrested on 25 June, and this marks his second arrest during detention. And during detention, she was tortured and abused and was subjected to harassment. Another example is journalist Muawiyah Abdul Razik. On 5 June 2024, the RSF militias stormed his house, South Khartoum, killing him and 3 others of his friends. Muawiyah was brutally murdered for his work in documenting violations and abuses. Another example is the Sudanese embassy in Kampala. She has rejected issuance of passport to lawyer Hanan Hassan. According to the embassy, she is included in a list by the Sudanese prosecution, denying her and preventing her from renewing her passport. Our last example is lawyer Riyad Abdullah. Is a human rights defender and a member of the emergency lawyers group. He documented human rights violations against civilians since 15 April 2023, and he was subjected to enforced disappearance twice by the RSF. Those examples gives you an overview of how far both warring parties are willing to do to stifle human rights and stifle the voices of those defenders. Unfortunately, what we think is that we are sleepwalking towards the normalization of these acts of reprisal. And every day that passes without intervention is another day where another human rights defender is being abused or intimidated, forcibly disappeared, arrested, or even killed. The situation represents not only a direct assault on those individuals, but on the broader, it's like a broader threat to the future of human rights in Sudan and in the region as well. We think that one of the most urgent needs for Sudanese human rights defenders and women human rights defenders is the need for a safe bubble for them to operate without fear. We think that human rights defenders are not merely victims, or that's how we view them. They are not victims of this conflict. On the contrary, they are an important pillar to be relied on and an important pillar for the movement for justice in Sudan. Their work is very important and essential, not only for monitoring and documenting the wide types of violations, but also for providing crucial and important support to victims and their families. And they will have an important role in the transnational justice process in the future.